rowdy students breathe down your neck. That is the block party.
Hudson finishes off Kentucky.
Purdue gets to celebrate. They take down number 3.
And the Boilers have done it. They advance to the Sweet 16.
Welcome back to the Dig City Podcast, brought to you by Franciscan Health, the official medical provider of Purdue Athletics. Dave Shondell, Corey Palm, and opening week is finally here, Coach. We're going to preview this weekend's action as best as we can, not knowing a whole lot about opponents because it's week 1. We're also going to talk about some early results that have come back already and the importance of Holloway Gym, home court advantage. That'll all come later in the show. But let's start with Stacey Clark Classic is hours away instead of days or weeks away. Just overall sense of where you're at, where the team's at going into this weekend.
Yeah, I think the amazing thing to me is that no matter how long you do this, and I think people recognize that there are some coaches that have been doing it for a long time, you never lose that excitement or even the nervousness about what's going to happen when your team steps onto the floor for the first time. The one real advantage that I believe we have is we're going to step onto Holloway Gym's floor, Beelan Court, and we're going to have 2,500 of our Boilermaker fans there, and that always eases some of that tension when you have that. But you work since last December to prepare a team, and your players are working so hard in the weight room, on the floor, on their own time. We took the trip to Europe to kind of help, with cohesion and chemistry and make this all a great opportunity for a very successful season. But then it's time to do the job. Then you've got to go out and make it happen. And so, as we mentioned last week, we scheduled Kansas State, who I think will be a top 25 team. They should have been an NCAA tournament team a year ago. I think they went 16 and 13 and 10 and 8 in the Big 12. Yep. They beat Texas. They dropped the ball a couple times early against some teams, and I think that bit them in the tail end. But they're a really good team, and they've gotten a lot better this year. So we have great excitement. There's great anticipation. But on the other side of things, we know we have to play at a high level for us to be successful, not just against Kansas State, but against UMBC and UC Davis for us to finish this tournament and have some momentum going into the next week.
Definitely. And so people know, maybe you know this already, but the host teams of these tournaments set the schedule. Mm-hmm. They take travel considerations into account if a team's got to get out, get a flight, things like that. But there's a reason you put Kansas State first. You said that earlier this fall that you wanted that opponent in that premier spot Friday night to have this team with 5 ranked wins last year, 3 top 10 wins last year to focus on all through camp.
Just to know that we were going to be playing a really good team. We really haven't talked about Kansas State. We just started talking about them a little bit yesterday. Okay. As far as who they are, a little bit more in detail. That will come into full force today with some video sessions. But just the knowledge that Kansas State, they're coached by Jason Mansfield, who is a really, really good, I call him a young coach. He's not necessarily young, but in relative terms, he certainly is, and he does a great job, and he's a class act. And they have 2 outside hitters that are terrific, just super athletic. They have a setter that I think is dynamic. Reminds some people a little bit of Haley Bush, just with the intensity in which she plays with and how she completely takes charge of her team. They pick up a transfer from Pepperdine who was a 2-time all-conference player for Pepperdine. That's a steal. That was a great get for them. And they kind of play. They put 3 middle hitters on the floor at the same time, and one plays in the opposite position. The other 2 play in the middle. Mm-hmm. But again, they're going to lean heavily on their 2 left side attackers, and so I think that's where we start. But we also need to know that they've got experience back in those other positions, and we'll do the best we can in trying to prepare for them. But really, at the end of the day, it's not about Kansas State. Yeah. It will be about Purdue, and can we have our act in order when we go out there, and are we going to compete, and we're going to be organized, and are we going to be able to be in system often enough to do the things that will make Purdue a really good team.
Because every team at this level can serve well if you're not passing well.
Yeah, I mean, that's the name of the game.
Yeah.
And if you weren't sure if serving was the most valuable skill, then you didn't watch the Olympics, nor did you watch Texas steamroll Wisconsin and Nebraska last year at the Final Four to win another national championship, because that was how they won. So, it's something that everybody works on. If, these three teams that we're going to play this weekend, Kansas State, UMBC, and UC Davis, will all be focused on serving the ball tough. Because when you play somebody that on paper might be better than you, you have to risk serving the ball tough to try to take them out of system. Otherwise, you have no chance.
Yeah, that's a great point. You mentioned Kansas State's experienced 10 upperclassmen on this team, 2 grad students, 4 seniors, 4 juniors from, like you said, they got a couple transfers, but it's largely a core group that's been together for a while, experienced those highs last year, experienced the low of at the end of the season, and certainly probably has something to prove.
Well, if you want to know how confident they are, you look at their pre-conference schedule. And
that's for sure.
And it's a really, really tough schedule. So clearly their staff believes this is a year that, they can make some noise and beat some people that will earn them a spot in this year's NCAA tournament. And from what I've watched of them a year ago, and with the full knowledge of a libero that's coming from LSU that was a high-profile recruit, the transfer from Pepperdine to join this large nucleus that they already have coming back, they will be a top 25 team. They were, as you said last week, they were on the outside looking in, maybe 29, 28, somewhere in that category.
Knocking on the door.
And they haven't been in the top 25 for a while. But Jason Mansfield very quickly has the fire burning, and a lot of things happening there in Manhattan.
For sure. To your point, they've got upcoming non-conference matchups with USC and Creighton. They play Lipscomb, which we've seen in the past, UNC, UCSB, Oklahoma. So they're going to test themselves before they get into the Big 12.
And funny thing, that Oklahoma match, Jason Mansfield's brother is the head coach at Oklahoma. So that will be, I'm sure, something they'll probably try to do every year, a little bit of sibling rivalry.
That's great. It always makes those family get-togethers at the end of the season more fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's Friday night against Kansas State, 7 o'clock. Match is sold out, but
well, and here's the thing, though. There's also some events going on here on campus that are going to pull a little bit. So I'm guessing there might be some tickets that might show up on your StubHub or whatever the place that you look for tickets. If you are going to be at, I know there's a big John Purdue Club event that night to get the football season started and to celebrate some of our top, donors and supporters. And if those people aren't going to be able to make it to that match, by the hope that they recognize that we're playing volleyball that night too, get those tickets to somebody.
For sure.
We have to have butts in the seat. And I know, our students are going crazy. I mean, it's a big night for them. They're going to go crazy. But we need every seat filled.
Turn the page to Saturday. UMBC comes in. That's University of Maryland, Baltimore County, a tournament team last year, 17-8 last year, winning the America East. They fell to a top 10 ranked USC in the first round of the tournament, but they played in the tournament. That's
well, I think
what mattered.
I think they've been in the tournament maybe 3 or 4 years in a row. They've pretty much controlled that respective conference, and they'll have a little bit of an international flair. Sometimes a lot of those East Coast schools will try to, if they can't get the high level, Americans, they're going to go out and get some international players, and that's what Casey Kreider has done. Casey's a really good coach. He was an assistant at Miami. He's been a couple different places before that, but he does a great job. And he doesn't schedule. He doesn't come out here if he doesn't think that he can upset the apple cart, whether it's us or Kansas State or somebody. They're feeling pretty good about themselves as well. I think last year their record was 17-8,
So,
something like that.
overall.
And played some really good people, as did UC Davis. We'll talk about them in a second. I think they're the sleeper in the tournament.
Yeah.
But UMBC they're not going to be intimidated by Purdue because they've been playing those kind of people the last couple of years during their non-conference slate. Yeah. So, it'll just be another non-conference tournament for them.
Definitely. They played Pitt and Penn State last year to that point. It's one of those situations where, maybe we've seen this in some preseason tournaments where maybe they run the America East and they know that, so they really try and challenge themselves in the non-conference. Yeah. And we'll see that. Really good size. This is true of Baltimore County and UC Davis. Yeah. Really good size for what would be referred to as mid-major teams. Is 6'2", 6'3", international flavor, like you said.
And it is really difficult nowadays to field a tournament in your gym. Number one, you've got to pay money to get teams to come or agree to go to their place. For example, we will make a return trip to Kansas State. But in the other cases, we're paying money for them to afford to come here. And again, if you're not a Power 4 or an Autonomy 4 conference, the money is hard to get. And so they have an opportunity to make some money by coming, at least try to pay for their trip, whether it's the housing and the flight, whatever it might be. But they're not coming here if they don't think they can be competitive and help their program by making this trip. And that's the case with all three of these teams. And I've made that clear to our squad that nobody's coming in here to lay down. Nobody's going to play anybody's patsy when they come in here. They're coming here to compete, and it should be great tournament competition for our fans. These will be three really good matches.
And they get to come in and take on a top 10 team in a heck of an environment. Right. It's a great challenge all the way around and a chance to really make a statement early in the year for all four teams. Sunday we'll cap the tournament with UC Davis. The Aggies come in. They were just a hair under 500 last year. They play in a really tough Big West Conference. And
look at their non-con.
Their non-con is last year they got wins over Arizona and North Carolina in the non-conference and had a losing record. So they're a quality side.
I think they may have played USC. They may have played somebody else really, really good at maybe Hawaii.
They play Hawaii. They're in their conference.
They had a really, really tough schedule as I was looking at it the other day. So, again, they know what good competition looks like. They know what speed and power and a tough home court, is like. So it's not going to be anything new for any of these teams when they come in here. We don't know a lot about UMBC or UC Davis as far as we haven't gotten very far with them.
Sure.
We have to focus on that first squad, and I've got a full staff that's diving deep into all of these teams. But right now, my respect for Kansas State is so high that that's the only team that I'm looking at so far. Okay, probably later today, tomorrow, I'll start to dive in a little bit to these other teams, but I also know I've got a great staff that will have us ready to play regardless who's on the other side of the net.
So those are the opponents. One cool note I thought about UC Davis is they're taking advantage of this trip east. They play the Boilermakers on Sunday afternoon and then head down to Bloomington for a Monday match against the Hoosiers, sort of knock 4 matches out on one road trip and kind of try and
their head coach Dan Connors I know was at Illinois, and you might want to pull up his bio. I know he was at Nebraska as well, and now he looks a lot like Chuck Connors. Okay, now again, a name that may fly right over even the head of you, but looking at your face right now, the Rifleman. Back in the 1960s and 70s, Chuck Connors was also a professional baseball and basketball player in his day, but one of my favorite shows growing up. This guy looks like Chuck Connors. I don't know if there's a relationship to him or not, but Dan Connors has done a great job, and but he's very familiar with this area, and so I think he wants to get his money's worth when he comes out here. He's going to play. Originally, I think they were going to play Butler, but then that fell by the way of Fat Sam somehow. So, but he is playing Indiana and us, and then the other 2 teams in our field. So he'll get his money's worth coming out here.
We're going to look during the break, see if we can find a connection between Dan Connors and Chuck Connors, and maybe ask him.
Well, names are spelled a little bit differently,
this weekend.
It may not be a real connection.
When we come back, we'll talk about some other things going on in the volleyball world and a very special person to the Purdue volleyball program. Stick with us. The Dig City Podcast is brought to you by Franciscan Health, the official medical provider of Purdue Athletics. At Franciscan, we are inspiring health. Now back to the show. All right, Coach, we kind of talked about this last week. You've kind of alluded to it already in our conversation today. The volleyball season is underway.
It is.
Big showcase event last night featuring 4 of the top teams in the country down in Louisville. Results kind of mixed for the Big Ten Conference as Wisconsin fell to the Cardinals, but Nebraska was able to handle Kentucky. Just what do you think an event like that, a spotlight event like that, says about volleyball right now?
Well, I thought it was great for our sport. We need more of these things, and I think TV now is going to be more welcoming to those as well. ESPN has not always been knocking our door down, but now I think they've seen the light. And so Jamie Gordon, the president of the American Volleyball Coaches Association, maybe not the president, maybe he's the CEO, whatever you want to call the guy that's really in charge. He worked really hard to put this together, and he got 4 really good programs to play in that event down at the Yum Center. What they like to do is they like to play this where the Final Four is going to be held. Smart. And then they reach out and they try to find 4 of the best teams that have great name recognition and bring them down there. And it looked like Nebraska brought a big crowd to join Louisville. I think that was the majority. Kentucky also, the Big Blue Nation was there, and Wisconsin had their fair share. But I thought it was great for our sport. Those teams all returned a lot of players, so I think that there's no excuses for them not being in pretty good condition to play on a couple days earlier than everybody else. They also got 3 extra days of practice, ahead of time, so they had the same amount of time as any of us. But I thought it was good. A couple of Muncie guys, a couple of Ball State guys were involved in the fray, and Kelly Sheffield, the coach at Wisconsin, and Craig Skinner. Both of them lost, unfortunately, but I think that nobody's going to feel too sorry for those guys because they showed they have a lot of talent, and I think they were all trying some new things. I know Wisconsin didn't have a full healthy squad. They were pretty close, but they've had some people that have not been healthy. I know even Smrek, I think, was walking around in a boot just a week ago, and even though she played pretty well, I know we're going to see a better Anna Smrek than what we probably saw last night. But it was really good. I thought Nebraska appeared to be the cream of the crop from what I saw, and they've just got incredible depth and experience that's returning. Louisville in a similar category, plus they were playing at home, which I think helped a little bit, but they just keep coming at you. They're just like Energizer bunnies. They're just jumping, and they've got a lot of different type of characters on their floor, different size players that do different things, and so Louisville and Nebraska win those matches. Wisconsin and Kentucky take their first losses of the season, but there won't be many losses on the dockets of any of those 4 teams.
That's for sure. One thing about Wisconsin, it doesn't get easier for them. They take Texas on next, and then Stanford after that in an event, in another showcase event up in Milwaukee. So. Well, they'll win 1 or 2 of those. Yeah. I can promise you that. Well, and we've seen this is a growing trend in volleyball the last handful of years, where the top 10 teams love to challenge themselves in the non-conference, and we'll see showcase matchups like that. I think that has also helped really grow the sport.
It's turned in a little bit more like what basketball is doing. Basketball has a lot of those tournaments. A lot of them some are in Hawaii, some are in Puerto Rico, different places. We're pretty much staying in the continental United States for budget purposes with volleyball. But I know there are some opportunities that are out there where you can travel and go places if your budget's big enough. But I think that Wisconsin's going to be fine. But I do think that the sport is just blowing up, and last night was just another episode of that. And I know they had good attendance, and I know they had good TV audience as well.
You mentioned ESPN hasn't always, put the sport on center stage. I think, competition's been a really good thing amongst the networks. When you've got the Big Ten Network really blowing up their coverage,
right. When
you've got FS1 starting to get involved now, Big Fox is doing a handful of games, NBC is doing a handful of games, ESPN has simulcasted the national title on ABC. Yeah. Like we it's really a rising tide lifts all boats kind of thing when it comes to coverage, and it can only help the sport.
It's going to help the sport. And keep in mind, I think still the biggest advocate of volleyball for us, and really been the best in covering volleyball, has been the Big Ten Network. Nobody has done it any better than our folks at the Big Ten Network, and they're not going to fall behind anybody. I think they take great pride in what they're doing. I love that NBC is jumping in. Peacock, obviously an affiliate of NBC, that they're going to be doing a lot of our matches. Our match with Wisconsin on the 26th of October, I believe it is going to be, to my knowledge, the first college volleyball match ever on NBC. And I'm not sure anybody would know any better than I, because I've been watching volleyball on TV when you used to not be able to find it.
Yeah, if it's on TV,
to where now you can. So that's exciting for us to be able to play that first match in what we think will be a full house at Mackey Arena.
Speaking of full house at Mackey Arena and the Big Ten Network, we talked earlier about the importance of Holloway and making sure it's packed Friday night. I mean, the season is sold out. That's the official word. There's always ways to get tickets, but the importance of having, with all the things going on campus this weekend, still the importance of having a packed house and really allowing that environment to be what it can be in Holloway Gym. How big a deal is that for people to come out, not just against Kansas State, but Sunday afternoon?
If you want to build something special, you have to have the environment. I just would compare it to what Matt Painter has done with our basketball program, our men's program. That is an absolute happening. It's an event every night or every afternoon that you go in and watch. It could be at 1 in the afternoon playing Michigan State. You feel like you're at Madison Square Garden, only better. The marketing people, the facilities crew, the game management people, what they've made that venue look like. It's just you can't not go. If you have a ticket, you have to go. And so we need that same feel. And one of the reasons that we wanted to squeeze a couple games into Mackey was, one, this incredible evolution of our sport that people are finally realizing. It's just such a great thing that they finally have recognized what this sport is like and how engaged people are becoming in it. But just the opportunity to go into that arena and have that environment and take advantage of that and maybe grow it. Maybe next year it's 4 matches we play in there, if we can. I felt for a long, long time that we have one of the best fan bases in the country for volleyball, but when you can only play in a facility that I think shows 2,400 on the total capacity, you can't be in the top 10 in the country in attendance. And you've got places that their programs are not near as good. Their fans don't love their program nearly as much as they do here, are ahead of us in attendance. And so when recruits or novice fans look at that, they get a little confused. So I think this year when we go in and we have 14,800 on back-to-back Saturdays to go along with a sold-out 24-28 for the other 11 matches, all of a sudden people, will definitely be in the top 10 in attendance.
It'll slot us more appropriately where we belong. Right.
But more important, that kind of a crowd helps you win.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, that's at the end of the day. At the end of the day, that's what we're here for.
The network, the Big Ten Network. Emily Amon has talked about how she still hears Holloway Gym days later. The electricity in there is palpable for every match, not just the big ones. It's the toughest.
And recently on her show with Terry Pettit, Pettit was the longtime Nebraska coach who built that program at Nebraska before handing it over to John Cook, who's carried on beautifully. But he has a podcast, and he had Emily Amon on there, and Amon just said that, Holloway's the toughest place to play. It's an incredible environment, but that she also, because she's from Bloomington and has been in the Mackey Arena for a basketball game or two, she knows what that venue is, and she knows how the sound just what's it called when it reverberates off some of those metals at the top of that place. That if we have 14,800 and we're playing Indiana or we're playing Wisconsin in the sport of volleyball, it will be nuts.
It's going to be special.
Yeah.
No doubt. The final note for this week, this weekend is the Stacey Clark Classic. There's maybe no better fan, more important fan in recent history for sure than Stacey Clark was to this program. Just like we do every year, a moment to reflect on what she meant to the program.
Yeah. Well, when our staff first came here, Stacey had been a fixture in the women's sports side, but also the men's sports side. She was just a Purdue fan, but she really flexed her collective muscles with our volleyball and basketball programs on the women's side. And she met us maybe the first day. She was at the press conference when I was announced and got to meet her then. Didn't think much of it then until she started to show up at practices and started to show up to do whatever she could to make the experience for our players better. I'm not talking about handing over checks of money.
No.
Okay? I'm talking about just being there for them. Okay? And she was a photographer, and she liked to take pictures, and she would occasionally, be able to provide a picture of somebody from with their family and things like that. She did yearbooks at the end of the year. She was a scrapbook person, but she made these yearbooks for our players. But just her presence was unbelievable. And this is I guess the best thing I can say about her. I've never met a nicer person in my life. She wasn't aggressive. She wasn't bold. She wasn't brash. She was just as sweet as can be. And, her husband, Steve, is still in our venue every night to watch us play. But I guess it's been, what has it been, 5, 6?
At least
7?
6 or 7
years ago that she passed quickly from pancreatic cancer. Fought hard, but pancreatic cancer doesn't really care sometimes. And so, we certainly miss her, but we will forever, as long as I'm here, forever have this tournament to honor her. We only have one tournament this fall, and so I think it shows the value that she had in our program. And when our former players think about their experience at Purdue, she's a big part of it.
Yeah.
She had a big part of the joy that they had while they were here.
Never saw her without a smile.
Yeah.
Rarely saw her without her camera.
Yeah.
And people, we look at these grown women as adults. When they come to college, it's still a transition. And to know that there's someone else out there who cares for you, who loves you, can make all the difference in the world.
Yeah, and she does make a big difference. And kind of leads me to the last thing I want to share is that the success of athletes in college is all about their maturity. And maturity is very commonly known, what that means. But as an athlete, it's so much different because there's so many things that are going on. And nowadays, you have so many people in your ear because people are on this thing all the time. And they're reading social media and they're comparing themselves to other people. But I think that I'm just hoping that our fans will stay positive. And I'm not talking about our team. We don't have any problem with our people. But understand that 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old student athletes, whether they're male or female, they need to be encouraged. I was down watching some open gym with our men's basketball team the other day. I'm a big fan, and I happened to then see a lot of the coaches from that team. And I let them know that the big Swede, Wilbert, he is turning into a monster.
He is thick.
He is just so aggressive and so active and getting his hands on so many balls around the basket. And I said, you know what? That's a guy that just needs positive reinforcement. I think he's going to be a good player for us this year. He's got 3 years left. Yep. He redshirted, played a little bit last year. I think he's going to have to play some. And I was with Coach Painter last night. He had a birthday yesterday.
Yeah,
I think he turned 54. But we were able to celebrate just for a little bit before I had to go home and get busy. But I told him, I said, the guy's going to help you. I don't know how many minutes he's going to get, but my point is that no matter where they are in this journey, being positive with them and helping develop that confidence and the ability to deal with situations, it's all about maturity. If our team develops, I call it athletic emotional maturity, but it's just maturity. If they can develop that maturity, what a difference it's going to make. How they deal with situations. Hey, this ain't going to be easy, but I just think that there's so many things that go on in the world of sports right now that it's hard on people. A lot harder than it was back when I was playing at Ball State in volleyball. And we had great crowds at Ball State in men's volleyball, but we didn't have social media. And we didn't have to worry about what somebody somewhere else was doing and what they looked like and things like that. So
Maturity leads to success, and success is all we hope for this weekend.
well, thank you very much.
Good
All
luck.
right. Want to see those fans out there, and the students have got a big deal on Friday night. The block party has their grand opening when they get their shirts and a big pizza fest, and I know our players will be out there to welcome them back. So we're looking forward to seeing all of our fans come back this Friday night.
Sounds good. Boiler up.
Boiler up.